Yes, hello everyone. Welcome back to WD18, the Watford fan channel. It's another match preview. We're back. The international break is over. Watford are back in action. It's the bank holiday Easter weekend, which means games on a Friday and a Monday. Sam, I think you mentioned it, didn't you, in one of the videos about if you take ourselves back to 2014-15, that Igalo kind of bank holiday weekend, if you remember it. Derby on the Friday, Middlesbrough on the Monday. If we could have a repeat of those two results, then it would be too bad. Obviously, we don't want to be drawing on Friday night, but it's a big game. It feels like a pivotal point in the season. As always, we're joined by Sam and Elliot to discuss Friday night's game. We'll start with you, Sam. First off, feelings at the moment. Feelings with Watford. Still feeling confident after the video the other day?
No, I am feeling really confident. I feel like since we last played, we've done the Tom Cleverley interview and the Joe Hungo interview as well. And that's been obviously really good to occupy me with during the international break. That's just such a bad time of the season when, the run in and all of that, and you're just getting really into it. And then we have to wait 2 weeks to watch Watford play again. But yeah, particularly those two interviews, I thought really gave me a different sense of confidence, speaking to the players, particularly Tom towards the end, his message to the Watford fans. And, we're in good hands with some of the players in this squad as well. And I'm confident that we can get over the line.
Well, that's kind of been the theme of this season, hasn't it, Elliot? We're kind of hitting form at the right time. Do you think the international break, I think we mentioned on the video, but do you think the international break came at the wrong time? I guess we'll find out, but it did feel like we were in great form when it came around.
Yeah, like you say, we will ultimately find out whether or not on Friday night, but listening to Xisco Munoz in his press conference, he sounded like he really needed the break and his players need the break. He seemed pretty relieved to actually have had this break and now had the time to rest and recuperate, work with his players, those that aren't off on international duty. So yeah, I think it's come at the right time in terms of players recuperating. So I think now moving forward, it's a big run of games now to end of the season. And I think it would be interesting to see how much that recovery has helped and how much of a role that's played for both sides tomorrow night as well. Having Darren Moore come in at Sheffield Wednesday, had a bit of time to work with the players and work out different systems. So I think it will be one of those games that has been the product of this international break tomorrow night. But yeah, I think it's probably come at the right time considering how tired a lot of
is it a night game tomorw? I thought it was
3 o'clock, 3 p.m.
It's 3 o'clock, isn't it? It's not night, is it?
It's weird having a 3 p.m. game on a Friday.
Yeah, no, just building on what Elliot said though, I feel very much that this kind of has the international breaks had a pre-season feel to it. I don't know if either of you can kind of understand that, but I just feel like we kind of got now this mini league going on between, I wouldn't say Norwich, but us, Swansea and Brentford. And this international break has kind of allowed Xisco to have the first consistent period without a game to work on the team and work on his system and work on tactics and that kind of thing. And, that's all building up for the run-in now. And hopefully we'll have as many players fit as possible for it. And yeah, so I just feel like it's been a bit of a pre-season, which has been helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Elliot, do you want to maybe give us the lowdown on what Xisco mentioned in the press conference on injuries? And there's a lot of talk surrounding some of the players at the moment. What did he mention in yesterday's press conference?
Yeah, so a lot of it is limited now to the injury update that's posted out on the website, which I think makes sense. Sometimes it can be a bit of a bore to go through injury updates a lot when a lot of it's the same every week. Yeah. So there's not much on players like Ismail Assar and Philip Zinkernagel. The club did release pictures of Philip Zinkernagel in training, which is encouraging. So I guess you could assume that he might be in the squad tomorrow. But apart from that, Christian Kabasele looks like he's nearing full fitness. I spoke to him briefly about that, and he just said that it's great to have another player in the squad and another player available. He actually watched him against QPR under 23s.
Got about 60 minutes, didn't he, Elliot?
He did, yeah. And I think he played quite well despite them losing 2-0. So that's another encouraging player back. It's more competitiveness in the centre-half position, which we probably don't need, but it's good to have because we've now got Ben Wilmot, Craig Cathcart, Christian Kabasele, and then Francisco Sierralta and William Troost-Ekong. And yeah, he seems pretty optimistic. Again, he's keeping his feet on the ground. A lot of the reporters are eager to talk about Swansea and Brentford. They're like, are you looking at maybe over your shoulder, seeing how they're playing? I think we're playing before both sides for the next couple of games. And there's a bit of a focus on that, on whether that was a benefit to us or whether it was a drawback. But yeah, he wasn't going to be reeled into that at all. And I think he's just really focusing on the team at the moment, on the next game. He said the next game is the most important game. And then the game after that is the most important. One thing I did find interesting, which I know did the rounds on social media, was his talk about Daniel Bachmann and Ben Foster. There was a lot on that. And he said, Danny, as he affectionately calls him.
Like a second son or something.
Danny is my number one for now, and we'll see what happens. He praised the professional goalkeepers that he has. He says he's got 3 very talented goalkeepers. And then he mentioned Alan Parks as well as the 4th. He said he's got great goalkeepers, all very professional. And he's not ruling out bringing in other goalkeepers, of course, because you never would. But yeah, right now he sees Daniel Bachmann as the number 1.
Sam, is that the correct decision to stick with Dan? I know there's been a lot of talk, hasn't there, with Dan and Ben. Obviously, Ben's coming back from his injury. Correct decision to keep Dan in between the sticks?
Yeah, exactly. I think his clean sheet record speaks for itself. There's been a couple of shaky moments. I think of the Bournemouth game. I think of the Derby game. But there were a couple of times where, he probably should have commanded his area a bit more. But I feel like the last couple of games, like particularly against Birmingham, while it was a pretty comfortable win, I thought there was a big improvement in there from him in terms of him commanding his penalty area and building a proper relationship with Troost-Ekong and Sierralta at the back. So I definitely would keep Daniel Bachmann in goal, but we're so lucky to have a set of really good goalkeepers in there.
Well, this is the thing, as Ellis said rather in the comments, Elliot and Ellis. Why drop back when he's playing brilliantly? From your perspective, Elliot, do you think it's the right call from Xisco to kind of keep the faith with Dan?
Yeah, absolutely. He's now played more games under Xisco Munoz than Ben Foster has. So he's sort of Xisco's number 1, and it's got to the point now where I think the faith is with Bachmann. I think it'd be very harsh to drop him now, and I wouldn't be surprised. I know my head would drop if I was removed from the squad or dropped from the starting 11 after putting in performances like that. So I think it's also about morale. You've got to keep a player in that's performing well.
Yeah,
and
particularly after being number 2 for so long as well.
Exactly, and I've mentioned it before, but I think he lends himself quite well to how we play. Often he soaks up the pressure. He has the attacker drawn towards him. I think that'll be a key tomorrow night with Josh Windass playing up front potentially for Sheffield Wednesday, having those fast attackers and then the whole team shifting forward to press Bachmann. And then he's very composed in the way that he clears his lines, and he's very good with his feet. And I think he's improving every week. There's been criticism in the past of him not maybe commanding his area quite well enough, but I think he's improved there, and I think he's shown a lot more dominance in his own box. So yeah, I think it's all very encouraging from a Daniel Bachmann perspective and from a goalkeeping perspective at Watford. So yeah, why drop him now when he's at the height of his confidence? Yeah,
I have to agree with you two lads. Yeah. I think it's probably the right move to keep him in goal. Sam, on the line of changes, just looking at the last lineup really that Watford put out against Birmingham, the big changes from that team was obviously Gosling came in for Zinchenko, who picked up an injury. Obviously the main one was Isaac Success down the middle in a 3, and then Zhao playing on the right. Can you see those two guys playing? Obviously, it really does depend on injuries, or would you actually choose to start them?
I wouldn't be shocked to see Van Gosling play. Even if Philip Zinchenko comes back, I reckon he'll play out on the right or on one of the wings, with Ken Sema and Ismail Assar looking most probably like they probably won't be in and around the squad tomorrow, or particularly Ken Sema, who played most of the game for Sweden yesterday, or the whole thing. I'm not too sure. I think I'd give Andre Gray go up front if he's thinking between Success and Andre Gray. I'd go with Gray, because I feel like since he's changed his nationality to Jamaican, we've seen a new player, and it was in that Birmingham game that you just saw glimpses. We've been speaking about it quite a bit on our group chat, that it's the Andre Gray we signed, the one that you saw at Burnley, the one you saw at Brentford, where he gets in between the defender and the goalkeeper through on goal, and he's able to comfortably slot it in, and perhaps that's going to give a breath of fresh air for him. And I actually have said that I feel like he could be a really important player for us in the run-in, particularly as an impact player off the bench. But if we are going to change Isaac up front, then I probably would bring Andre back in.
That does seem to be one of the changes I think a lot of Watford fans are thinking about. Just having a look through some of the comments, actually the big talking point Elliot, is Ken Sema, as Sam mentioned, playing yesterday for Sweden. Is it too much of a risk to play him on Friday? That quick turnaround, he's got to travel back, he's then probably got to start. Number one, do you think he'll play? And number two, if he doesn't, or he starts on the bench, who comes in for him?
I think we know he's capable because he's done it a lot this season, where he seems to have just played every minute of every game forever. So I think he's probably got it in his locker to do that, but I just don't think it's worth it. I think it probably also depends on whether Ismaila Sarr and Philip Zinkernagel are fit to start. I don't think it should necessarily depend completely on that, because you have to judge these cases individually. But I think if Ismaila Sarr is fit to start, I think it's not as much of a blow to then lose Ken Sema, because you can bring in someone like Joseph Hungbo and you've got Philip Zinkernagel who could come in on the wing or in midfield. So I think it all depends on the other options around him. In just an isolated sense, I don't think I would start Ken Sema tomorrow, because he just needs a break. He hasn't had the international break as we have had, as a lot of the other players have had. And I think he just needs a bit of time back in England just to rest. And there's another game on Monday, so he won't get much time to rest, but long enough for us to see a fresh Ken Sema. So I'd like to see someone like Joseph Hungbo play. As much as João Pedro was good out wide just before the international break, I do prefer him definitely centrally in the middle. So if we can help it, I'd like to have João Pedro in the middle. But if not, we know Andre Gray's confidence is really high. So yeah, I'd be happy to see Andre Gray play as well if need be.
Yeah, well, we spoke to Joe, didn't we, Sam? Joe Hungbo. I mean, if you haven't checked that video out, please do. It was a really interesting and actually very, I don't know, I just felt, when I was speaking to Joe, it felt like he was talking to, it was like talking to a mate. It didn't even feel like an interview with a Watford player. The guy's so driven, humble, and really funny as well. I don't think he realised how funny he was. Should he get given a start, Sam? Should he get given a start? I mean, his mindset, he's very, very driven, and it seems like he will get more opportunities. But as Elliot mentioned, with Sema potentially out, does he come into the equation?
I really want to say yes after the interview, but I'm going to have to say no, I think. I just feel like at this time of the season, while you kind of do need flair players like Hungbo on the pitch, I would rather go for experience. And even tomorrow, I feel like there are probably more sensible options to go for than playing Joseph Hungbo and putting him out there. You know, for example, if Zinkernagel's fit, moving Zinkernagel out onto the wing and bringing in another midfielder, that kind of thing, I feel, would probably be more sensible than playing Joseph Hungbo. But 100%, I feel like he does have a future at Watford. He's going to be a player, you can tell, and he's also driven, to succeed massively, and driven to read as many books as he can as well. It seems as well.
And the podcast. He's been listening to the WD18 podcast.
Yeah, we're now. It's now podcast as well, isn't it? The Joe Hungbo interview.
Yeah. So if you don't fancy watching it, you can listen to it if you've got cleaning, cooking to do. Chuck it in your ears. The interview with Hungbo. All the links will be in the description. I'll chuck them in there after the video. Elliot, from your perspective, we'll just touch on that interview with Joe. What did you take away from it? What was the big things?
Well, I just thought he was brilliant, considering he's someone that probably hasn't been exposed to many interviews. He probably hasn't had to do much of the media duty sort of stuff at Watford so far. I think he came across really well. I think he was very articulate, and he seemed to come across really well with his personality, and he seemed to know exactly what he wants from this, and he seems very driven and motivated. And he just seems like the sort of person that you'd want in the dressing room, even though he's young, even though he's someone that I think I said to him at the time could fade into the background as a young player. He doesn't seem to be just sort of happy to do that. He's more happy to step out of there and step out of the shadow and really show everyone that he's there on the pitch and off the pitch. So I think it's really encouraging, and I think he could be one for the future. And he has shown that he's been very good now. So there's a lot that we can enjoy about Joseph Hungbo, and a lot we can look forward to with Joe Hungbo and the team. So yeah, I just can't wait to see him develop more. Can't wait to see him get starts, get assists, get goals. So yeah, I think we've got a really good young prospect on our hands, and the interview was brilliant, if I say so myself. I
think the one thing we took away from it, to anyone who's watching, very, very genuine guy. Like, we spoke to him before, we spoke to him after, completely the same on and off camera. Really cool guy, very funny. And hopefully, as Elliot mentioned, we'll see more of him in a Watford shirt. Just going back on to Friday's game, Sam, I think I saw a comment from Aaron here who says, Gray better as an impact sub, Hungbo PZ7 to start if Sema is unavailable. And then Joe Finley Barder said, Messina played both games for Morocco. I know Joe, he follows the Morocco games. Amrabat is his profile picture as well. Was legend. Was pretty solid in both games. Came off in the second game late on, had ice on his ankle, but didn't look anything serious. Is that potentially a little bit of a concern? Because I think the only other option we could bring in, well, you've got a couple of options. You maybe bring in Lazar, you maybe put Kiko to left back. Is that a concern to you at all?
Yeah, it is a concern. I feel like Adam Messina has had his problems this season and his fair share of critics, I'd say. It's important because he is our best left back. And, I feel like, particularly with the way our wingers like to run on the left-hand side, whether it be, I don't know, Zhao or Zinkernagel or whoever's playing out on the left, or Ken most of the time, I feel like they've really benefited having a left footer and they can release the ball straight away rather than checking in onto their right foot and then going. I would probably, that being said, I would probably rather have Kiko, the right footer, playing at left back rather than Ashraf Lazar. But again, I feel like I don't want to say I'd rest players for tomorrow because we can't really disrespect Sheffield Wednesday like that. But we do have to be really careful with the players coming back from international duty, like Sema, like Adam Messina, like, I don't know, Ben Wilmot even.
As well, another one.
Troost-Ekong, yeah, exactly. We have to be careful with all of these guys. Craig Cathcart as well.
With that, Sam, do you make any changes? Do you make any changes at all from the guys who have been travelling? I mean, Troost-Ekong has obviously been playing in Lagos in Nigeria. It's a long flight back, so there's that's got to. I would imagine with Cisco, he's going to be considering all of that as well.
I probably would bring Philip Zinkernagel back in. That's the one for me. I'd love to bring Tom Cleverley back in, but we can't rush him back with that. If we can give him 10, 15 minutes tomorrow, that'd probably be a good thing. Really important play for us in the run-in. Really good to see him back out. He's in full training now, I think, which is really good. So he'll be really important for us in the run-in. But it's really difficult because I've tried to think of my starting 11 like I do before all of the previews and which changes I'd make, but I just can't put my finger on it because so many players we don't know whether they're we don't know. We've spoken a lot about how the anticipation with the lineup at certain times, then at times it can become quite predictable. But I feel like at 2:00 tomorrow when the lineups do come out, no one's really going to know what to be expecting. I said I'd bring Gray back in. Wouldn't surprise me if Success plays. Zinkernagel might or might not play. Troost-Ekong might or might not. So really interesting. Even Dan Bachman might not play because he's been on international duty. So really interesting. Yeah, going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's a lot up in the air, Elliot. From your perspective, similar question to Sam. Can you see any changes being made because of the travel, because of the international football? I mean, particularly we mentioned Sema, but Troost-Ekong captaining Nigeria. There's a lot of players out on international duty. Does that come in? Do you reckon that will come into Xisco Munoz's thinking?
I think it will, and I think it has already. He spoke a lot about squad depth in the press conference. It seemed to be a bit of a running theme. He was saying, I've got 24, 25 fantastic players, and it's a good problem to have that I can pick through all these players, and particularly in centre half, Troost-Ekong would be a big miss, but we've got plenty of options if he's not available. So it's a tough one. Ultimately, it depends on the condition that those players are in. I'm quite shocked that everyone has sort of accepted that Daniel Bachman, and this is just everywhere, including myself, has just accepted that Daniel Bachman will go straight back in, considering he has been on international duty. But fair enough, yeah, if he's back in, I'm not complaining. But it's a really tough one for Xisco Munoz, and I'm not sure how I would do it myself. You've got Andre Gray's been back for a few days now. His confidence is high. I could see him come in.
Wilmot even with the under-21s, Elliot. I mean, he was playing yesterday, so he's another one.
And he had 90 minutes as well. So
played all right.
He played quite well. He did. I thought he was one of the standouts, and I think it's so tough because I think the bench will actually be more interesting than the starting 11 tomorrow because there's just anyone that could be on that bench, absolutely anyone. But it's not really a bad problem because I wouldn't really complain with many positions if one player isn't fit or if one player isn't available. It's only really at left back that I think there's a problem if Adam Messina isn't fit. So I think you could pretty much pinpoint any position where this player might not play, that player might not play. So it's impossible to predict, but I could see players like Andre Gray coming in, and I think that's probably the likely incoming player for tomorrow.
Sam, just looking at the chat here, Sean, it's a difficult question, this one, and I'm going to fire it over to you. If this is a second string Watford side in which all international players are rested, can you see us slipping up in this game? We know Sheffield Wednesday are 23rd. Obviously, our home form's impeccable. Are you slightly worried in that respect, or are we maybe overthinking it a little bit?
I am. As a Watford fan, you have to, look at every single game as a potential banana skin. We've had a lot of difficult games against Sheffield Wednesday over the years, particularly that last day of the season when we got promoted, which, probably shouldn't, but it still hurts the fact that we didn't win the league on the last day of the season. The last minute goal. So we have.
What hurts more, that or Capu leaving?
Oh, don't get me started. Do you know what? Just not on Etienne Capu, but in that position, the two that have to be in there tomorrow, Will Hughes and Nathaniel Chalabar, regardless. Because I feel like, that's putting me on the spot because it's genuinely that's where it could be anywhere, because it depends on the fitness of a lot of players in there. I would probably say it will be Dan Gosling tomorrow, actually. But yeah, no, Hughes and Chalabar, I feel like you can pretty much go from there after putting those in the middle, because they're pretty much set the tone for the rest of the team. But going back to the question, I feel like we could slip up tomorrow. I personally don't think we will. But no, it's the Championship. Anything can happen. They need points. We need points. So it could go either way.
Elliot, Sam mentions Sheffield Wednesday. What do you know about them? Obviously, Darren Moore's coming midway through the season. Left Doncaster Rovers, I believe, and they were in a good position. What do we know about them, their style of play, and what can we expect as Watford fans?
It's a weird one from Sheffield Wednesday's perspective, because I think a lot of them have resigned themselves to League One football next season, and many people thought that the appointment of Darren Moore as head coach was sort of that resignation of, look, we're preparing for League One football, and he's a good League One manager. But I think recently they've shown that perhaps that's not as inevitable as it was prior. That they're 2 games unbeaten, which doesn't sound that special, but if you look at prior to that, they hadn't won a game since the 9th of March, I think, and that was against Wickham. So it is a big turnaround to have to go on a run of 2 unbeaten. Darren Moore hasn't had too much time to work with his players. We know about the relentless schedule of the Championship, so I'm sure the international break was very helpful. I don't think many players went away on international duty, which is another big positive for Darren Moore. And it looks like 2 players that haven't really had much time as a duo this season in Josh Windass and Jordan Rhodes are now starting to gel more and play more as a duo, and that could be dangerous. They're playing more attacking football under Darren Moore, and I'm just interested to see how that style
could suit us, to be fair,
because it could. But then again, I think Darren Moore's too clever for that, and I think he will maybe opt to drop deep and play counter-attacking football instead, which could be dangerous for Watford. But at the same time, if he's tweaking the style, we don't know how that could affect the team. Again, that's probably something he's worked on over the international break. Something we were mentioning just before we went live was about Dominic Iorfa. He's had a long-term injury, but he played really well in the reverse fixture in the 0-0 draw at Hillsborough. So it's a big miss for them, and it's a positive for Watford that he won't be involved in this game. But one player that will is Barry Bannon, who I think
great left foot.
He's been about for years, though. I swear, he's one of those
back in the Forestieri days at Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah, because you have like those Championship players who just always seem to be there. Like one of them, I know, I don't know what he's doing now, but like I remember like Ross McCormack used to just always be in the Championship, just like at different teams, just scoring goals.
Jordan Rhodes, though, I mean, he's another one. He's so proven.
These players just don't really seem to make the step up, and Barry Bannon's just been there for years now, or just in the Championship generally.
Well, this is the thing with Sheffield. Sorry, go on,
Rhodes has hit form. He got 2 in a win against Barnsley, and just to say 2 wins unbeaten doesn't do it justice, because they beat Barnsley, which no team has really done for a while now, and they won pretty comfortably. Jordan Rhodes got 2 that game, and Josh Windass played very well alongside him in attack. So there's a lot of talent there, and there's a lot of places where Watford will have to be careful, and maybe there's a bit of cause for concern. But obviously, if Watford play to their strengths and 100%, it should be a win, and there's no doubting that. So it's just interesting to see how they cope with a number 10 like Barry Bannon, and then the new duo of Josh Windass and Jordan Rhodes.
Yeah, speaking of Fernando Forestieri, Chris has just reminded me in the comments, remember when Fessy played for us versus Wednesday away from home and he tore them apart? I missed that, man. Sam's got me another one. Tears when he left.
I was gutted. I stood with him when I was a mascot as well. I was top player. Is Jacob frozen?
I think he's frozen. That was just very happy.
That was just on the topic of Fernando Forestieri.
We can talk about Forestieri for hours anyway. So
yeah, exactly. It's not the worst place to to leave it to, I mean, you know, to be frozen on. But that Elliot, who would you say is like the main kind of threat that we should be worried about tomorrow? Would you say it's the front two? Obviously, will be dangerous. Would you say it's one of those two?
I think it's probably Bannon. I think that if Tom Cleverley does play, which is probably unlikely, that'll be a really fun battle because you've got two very talented and very experienced Championship players going at it. And I think the way Cleverley relentlessly presses against Bannon's sort of advanced midfield creativity, I think that could be a really interesting duel. So I'm not sure how that would work out, but that's why I'm a little bit wary of if Dan Gosling is the one that starts there in midfield instead. So
I felt like that during the Birmingham game, I thought that he did grow into the game, but I thought he did struggle to adapt to the tempo originally. Like it took him some time to kind of get into the flow. And that's probably because, you know, he hasn't really started a lot of games in the last 12 months and, you know, getting that first, you know, start in a long time. But no, I actually am like saying, you know, just what you were saying earlier, if Messina is out, which, you know, it is a possibility, it's up in the air. Areas.
I have to admit, I have no idea what's happening with the Wi-Fi today.
It
Drop it out.
It was the Wi-Fi was getting a bit emotional on the topic of Fernando Forest. I think that's what it
literally
was.
cut out on that, and I was like, no, don't leave me hanging on that. So what did I interrupt? Because I mean, there's a few people in the chat.
No,
apparently it froze on me just smiling. Is that right?
Yeah,
yes, it did. Yeah.
Sponsored by Coldplay.
That's one of the best comments we've ever had.
That's superb from Chris. Superb.
We were.
Sorry, what were you saying about Bessie?
I was just saying. I know a lot about Fessy, but I was just saying, I know we've spoken about it, but it is a concern for me about if Adam Messina is out tomorrow. And I don't know, because I know we spoke about before the international break about would you take the hit with Sarr missing one game so he can be back for more games? Do you remember we spoke about that?
Yeah.
And I feel like
before the international break.
Yeah, exactly. And Messina, if he has, you know, got a problem with his ankle or whatever it was, then I am thinking perhaps we do give him a rest tomorrow and try and rotate like that. But I remember though that there was a game when he was out and Xisco went with Ngakia at left back rather than Kiko. So that will be interesting to see what he does tomorrow. Yeah, I can't remember. It was one of those.
He did pretty well, I thought, Jeremy, actually, that game as well. He filled in quite well. So we've got options, I guess. It's not the end of the world.
It's a weird one with Ngakia because he's barely put a foot wrong all season. But when you've got Kiko Femenia in front of you in the pecking order, there's not much you can do. So it's a really tough one.
So weird because
to know long term
he must be one of our most consistent players this season, Jeremy Ngakia, because whenever he has come on or whenever he started games at the start, he's put in a shift and, you know, and he's done really well. But, you know, that's the nature of football when you've got a player of Kiko Femini's quality in front of you. You know, Kiko's undroppable. It's like any midfielder behind Will Hughes and Chalobah at the moment. It's not because they're doing badly. It's because the quality of performances from them are just so good. And, you know, that lifts the performances of the whole team to retain their places. So it's only a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you what, lads, just to wrap up, Stuart's very confident in the chat with a champ form team. Don't have much to fear from Sheffield Wednesday, 2-0 win. Charlotte says we've been pretty solid at home. This season should be a comfortable game tomorrow. Need to start positive and ideally get an early goal. Sam, it does feel like an early goal would definitely set the tone again in that respect. But I guess it's complacency that could potentially come in. But I mean, even then though, 8 games left of the season. Surely we've got to be on it.
Yeah, no, exactly. I don't think complacency's been as much of a problem since. You know, there were those 2 games. I don't want to keep on bringing it back to it, but it's the Coventry and the QPR games that have really shaped our season. And I think Xisco said something along the lines of that he didn't take QPR seriously, or he didn't see it as an important game. I can't remember.
I felt like that got twisted a little bit, didn't it?
Okay, fine. No,
Elliot, have I got that wrong? He said something.
I'm not sure about that. I wasn't at that game, but it was something along the lines of, he didn't feel that they executed the game plan quite right. And it wasn't quite, it was less so that it was complacency and more so that they just didn't quite do what was maybe asked of them and maybe what was expected of them that day. And I think it was maybe a slight loss in translation there, but ever since then there's been a big push on no complacency.
But the turnaround, Sam, I mean, there's been definitely a lift, hasn't there?
Exactly. I look back on those games because now I feel like complacency, you know, it's not a problem because they're evidently they're focused on the job in front of them, regardless of, you know, how weak the opposition are. And, who we're playing against. Like, we could have easily. I remember a lot of people were saying that we should rest players against Wickham, and I was one of them. And because we were exhausted around that time, and I was one who said that we should do that, but he went full strength, and we turned them over pretty comprehensively. So we seem to be taking every game pretty seriously, and I don't think if we lose the game tomorrow, it'll be down to complacency. Yeah,
Peter, just to clarify that quote from Cisco, he said he did not give the game the importance. So, yeah, I think, it's a very, very fair point. We have turned the season around completely. Fair play to this Watford squad. They've completely turned it on its head. Elliot, final thoughts going in tomorrow? Feeling confident? Feeling optimistic?
No.
Tom with the Watford fan. Wait, Elliot, did you say you're at the game tomorrow? Or?
I don't think so. Not
tomorrow.
No. Here we go.
Elliot, final thoughts, mate. Feeling confident? Score predictions?
Score predictions. I'm very 50-50 on it. I think it does completely depend on the Watford that turns up tomorrow. I'll go for a 1-1 draw just to remain cautious. I think they'll do pretty well against us. I think they'll be really up for it. They're at the point now where they really need to start picking up these results now, or it's really going to end up out of their hands. It already is to an extent out of their hands. They've been unlucky with the points deduction, losing 6 points. So I think they'll be really, really up for it. And it'll be an interesting test for us. So I'll say 1-1, but I'd be pleasantly surprised if we got 3 points from that.
Yeah, relegation, Sam, is out of Sheffield Wednesday's hands, but promotion is certainly in Watford's hands. Oh, like that little link there. Sam,
you had that written down last night.
Elliot mentioned it, and I was like, got to fire this one off. Sam, final thoughts, score predictions.
I'm gonna go. For once, I'm confident, which can't be a good thing. I'm gonna go 3-1 to Watford.
3-1 Watford. We've got a 3-0 win from Matt. Sean's gone with a 0-0. Dan's gone 4-0. We've got a 2-0 from Caroline. Joel's gone for a 3-1. Very, very positive in the comment section. Dan says Elliot's mascot hopes out the window.
Gutted, absolutely gutted.
To be fair, I think the club have got to just start inviting you to the games, mate. I reckon.
It's only fair.
So have we not lost since you've been at the games, right?
We've won every single one. It's either 5 out of 5 or 6 out of 6. I can't remember.
Ridiculous.
But,
just rename the Rookery.
What was the first game?
First game, so I went to Coventry and it was a 3-2 win. Then I didn't go for a little while, and then it was Norwich the win, and then from there it was sort of like a flurry of games where we've won. So
unbelievable record. Getting down to the Vic.
Rename the Rookery the Elliot Murray stand. That's what we need to do.
He's our lucky charm. Big game tomorrow. Final 8 games of the season. It's a massive time to be a Watford fan. And make sure you do follow us on all of our content here on WD18. We've got plenty more content on the way, heading into what is probably the biggest period in recent years for Watford. Make sure you do go and follow Sam and Elliot on socials. Thanks to Sam and Elliot for filling in for me when the connection dropped. Fingers crossed we don't bottle it on the pitch anyway. Hopefully it's not like the Wi-Fi. But if you did enjoy, guys, please do leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe to WD18. We'll be back for some more content post-match tomorrow. Fingers crossed after a Watford win, and we'll see you then. Come on, you Hornets. Someone just said petition to chain Elliot on the Rookery. Cheers, guys.